Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky. And in Maryland is John Webster, who is a happy camper. You can see it with the smile on his face. He can't contain himself because he was probably in the process of watching one of the best college football championship games we've seen in a while. Right, John?
Hey, hello, everybody. Gary Grace, how you doing, man? Thanks for the introduction. As I said to you earlier when you first came on, I'm watching the college football championship game now for the fifth time today. Congratulations to Georgia. Played a great game, but also I want to say congratulations also to Alabama. They played a heck of a game. That was a really great game, Gary. I completely enjoyed it. It was a slobber knocker. They were knocking the mess out of each other. I really enjoyed it, but the Bulldogs, they rolled over the Tide.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And I want to give props to the Georgia Bulldogs, not just because they won the championship, but because of how they did it. A month ago, we gave them up for dead against Alabama after the SEC title game. Alabama dominated that game. And even though you had a month to prepare and another game, I firmly believed, I picked Alabama, and I firmly believed that Alabama was still the strongest team, even though this was not one of their better teams. They were very, very young. They were inexperienced in many, many respects. They had a number of injuries, but yet here they were number one. And Georgia, the team that had been number one until then, basically reasserted itself. And again, it was good for college football to see, because there was a sense during that game last night that if Alabama had held on and won that game, that people would really start to become complacent about college football. That game really established the fact that there is another team besides Alabama. It's right in the same conference, as it turns out. But Georgia basically showed what we had thought for most of the season, that they were the best team in the land.
Well, I tell you something, Gary. Nick Saban said it best at the end of the game. When he went to shake hands with Kirby Smart, Coach Smart, he said, man, you kicked our butts in the fourth quarter. And I said to John Pitt, and let me back up and say, I'd be remiss again. I didn't do it. Hey, John Pitt, how you doing, buddy? But I would be remiss if I didn't say the fact that Georgia out Alabama in the fourth quarter. They normally fourth quarter is Alabama's game. That's when if they got to turn on you, they'll tighten the screws on you in the fourth quarter. Georgia flipped the script on Alabama, and I tell you, they came back. They were losing. What was it? It was a score. They were losing 18-13, and then they scored the last 20 points, 20-0 to win the game. And I tell you something else, Gary, got to be very happy for the kid, Stetson Bennett the fourth. You got to be very happy. Indeed. That's the underdog kid who's been at every turn. They tried to make sure he didn't get the job. I mean, going into this year, when you read all the football magazine, JT Daniels was supposed to be the starting quarterback this year.
That's right.
This kid is a walk-on. He stayed in there every time he thought he would start. Something came up that pushed him down the depth chart. He finally got it together. And then last night, they won the game after the rough showing they had in the SEC. I was really feeling bad for him for a while, Gary. When they called that play where they said he fumbled the football when it was 13-12, and I said, man, I thought it was a pass. I thought his arm was going forward, but the replay said no. But I was feeling bad for him. But then they came right back, and he threw that beautiful touchdown in the corner to Mitchell. Oh, man, I'm so happy for Georgia. And like I said, I'm happy for that kid because he stuck through it, and he made it through. And, hey, he's a champion today.
Yeah. There were so many things, again, as much as I was on Alabama's bandwagon when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but the thing about Georgia that I really admired last night, and it was embodied in Stetson Bennett, and that's resilience, John. That kid has taken so many blows in the media, from the public, and probably within his own program. I mean, again, like you alluded to the demotions and that kind of thing, and he just kept fighting. He just kept working, and even in a game like that. And the thing, this is where I'm most impressed with Georgia, that gave him the chance to do that. When with that defense, all those times that Alabama moved downfield in position to score, and they were holding them to field goals until, I think it was, they said when they were ahead 18-13. Even then, I kept thinking, I said, this is not the same Alabama team. That defense is really, keeping them in the same way, the way that they were supposed to really do it. If you're going to beat Alabama, you've got to limit the damage that they can do to you. And they kept doing that. And I remember thinking at one point, it's like the offense has to take over because the defense just kept giving them opportunities. If you're holding them to field goals, that is probably the best case scenario you could hope for. And at some point, the offense has to deliver between the ground game and then and Bennett. That fourth quarter, like you said, it was all Bulldogs, and you really have to give them credit. And really, you have to give credit to Kirby Smart because you stuck with the process. They stuck with the process, and they're hoisting the trophy today as a result.
Gary, let me ask you this. Name a time this year you saw Bryce Young on the ground getting hit as much as he did last night.
Last night was the first time because, I mean, when you have that many touchdowns versus interceptions as he had, he wasn't getting touched. I mean, I think that there were like 2 or 3 games where I think he might have been sacked maybe twice in a 2-game span, and this is in the SEC. They weren't getting to him, but they got to him last night. They figured it out.
You know what? And then it's funny. I got to ask you about this. I got a call and a question about the game, and it came from a Tom Jones from St. Mary's County in Alabama. And he wanted to know, did the injuries have an effect upon the game? And I guess my thought is, I mean, yes, from one standpoint, Alabama's missing John Mechie, who's a top 10 draft pick. They lost Jamison Williams last night, who's another top 10 draft pick. It had an effect, but I still think Georgia wins the game, even though the injuries had some type of effect, because that defense was really bending but not breaking, and they were doing something to Alabama all last night. It had an effect, yes, but I don't think it was the be-all and end-all to make the game what it was. What do you think?
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, well, okay, I do think the injuries had some effect.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia had an effect on those injuries happening. I mean, that was that was kind of a beating that they put on them, not so on a scoreboard, but I'm talking about just a physical beating that you don't see against Alabama. The only thing that I've seen that was really when they lost to Texas A&M, earlier in the season. They matched them physically. They took advantage of mistakes, and again, they stuck with it and moved in position, to win that game late, handing Alabama its only loss until last night. But I'm not saying that was a blueprint because again, Georgia had every opportunity to do that in the SEC title game, and Alabama just put it on them. But that defense just bowed up and just lay the wood on them, frankly. Ooh. And again, you not only knock guys out of the game, you knock them back a few yards, but you keep them out of the end zone. That has to have an effect because of Alabama's just like, look, we're moving the ball, we're doing everything that we're supposed to, but we're only getting 3 points out of it. That has to have a mental effect. And when you're Georgia, that has to have a mental effect too. It's just like, something, we're beating these guys. Let's just flex our muscle and do what we're supposed to do, what we know how to do. And bear in mind, John, remember what we said earlier this season, when when Georgia was only, giving up maybe 6 or 7 points a game. And, that was not an accident. Granted, they weren't they might not have been playing the best competition at the time, but when you're keeping teams out of the end zone and you're holding, you're only allowing maybe 6 to 8 points a game as they were, that's not an accident. And they showed that last night.
Well, all I can say is this, Gary. I know you got to move on. Alabama went to the red zone 4 times, and got 1 touchdown. And that's, maybe it's 5 times because they got 4 field goals. So they went to the red zone 5 times and got 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
That's rough. And that, again, congratulations and kudos to the Bulldogs.
Yeah. Now, 2 things to keep in mind with this, John. 1, Alabama is going to be right back here next January.
Yep.
Because that was a young team. They were resilient, but they were young and vulnerable pretty much all year, but yet they got here.
Mm-hmm.
They lose, that anywhere from 6 to 12 players to become high round draft choices in the NFL. But you got Bryce Young coming back. And I mean, that's where you start. He's just a sophomore. I don't know if he's going to be a Heisman favorite because, I mean, only Archie Griffin is repeated as a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, again, it could happen next year, but just look at Alabama is just going to be older, more seasoned, even with the losses, which makes them dangerous. With your Georgia, how do you guard against complacency? How do you, not read the headlines? And, really, how do you replace a Stetson Bennett, which we didn't think we'd be saying? And we're not talking about ability. We're talking about just his determination, just how fierce a competitor he was. And again, I don't know if JT Daniels would have gotten them there, especially in that situation. And that's no knock against him. It's just how teams really rally around a quarterback who just really has followed that kind of path and just stuck with the process that we always talk about in sports, and especially in college sports.
Well, it's going to be interesting. You're right. I mean, they already started making predictions for next year, and the number 1 prediction already is Alabama is already put in the number 1 slot. So we'll see how it's going to be next year. And I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm not even going to bring up my favorite team in South Bend. I'm not even going to put them in the conversation. That's how thoroughly good I was with the game last night. That's how much I loved it.
Yeah. And like I said, to all my Georgia fan friends out there, congratulations. I was in the Louisville airport this morning, and there were a whole bunch of Georgia fans that had driven down from Indianapolis, to fly out of Louisville. And it was a good thing to see. I mean, just to see the fans with that spring in their step the day after, not just a victory, but a really satisfying victory. It's not just like, to me, it wasn't just that they ended a 41-year drought. It's that they proved how good a program it is, that there's more than one program in the SEC besides LSU and Alabama.
Yeah. Well, it was great to see. I enjoyed it. And as you said, Gary, having Georgia win this year, Alabama did a number on Ohio State last year, and Saban has 6 national championships. Coach Saban has 6 national championships. It was nice to see it. So we go from there.
Yep. And we go to the big level where, we are still dealing not just with the end of the regular season, but the inevitable fallout for coaches. Black Monday was what it was yesterday. And I think at last count, we have now 7 openings in the NFL. Before we started taping, Joe Judge from the Giants, got axed. I think the only surprise in that was that it took a second day, but I think upon reflection, the Giants did what they had to do because, I mean, I just couldn't see him coming back to that. he was talking a lot of trash on Monday for a team that lost to the Washington football team because of a lot of his decision making. But again, what do they say? Better late than never.
Yeah, well, hey man, what can you say about a coach that's on his own? 12-yard line, 5-yard line, it's 3rd and 9, and he calls a quarterback sneak. What do you call? What can you say about that? I mean,
there's just nothing. Like, I mean, look, we could talk about a coach's decision, but we could talk about a decision by a coach who didn't get fired, but ultimately cost his team a game. Out there in San Diego or out there in Vegas.
Ooh,
I mean, you could talk about the late timeout, which was very, very curious as well. Might have been the decision that cost them the game because that one, the Raiders were playing for a tie. I don't care how anybody tries to spin it. That like they were playing for a tie, and both of them were going to get in, and it was going to knock Pittsburgh out. But let's talk about the coaches who who lost their jobs over the weekend, or at least some of them. And the one, of course, that I think has both of us scratching our heads with what little hair we have left on them is Miami and Brian Flores. That one just mystifies me to no end. That one actually kind of pissed me off because it's like you win 8 of your last 9 games. Granted, you don't make the playoffs, but how in the world do you lose your job after that, and after a second winning season? That just reeks of like what happened to Jim Caldwell in Detroit.
Well, I can tell you're upset because you said pissed off, and in your vocabulary that's cussing. So I know you're perturbed. But out of all of them, Coach Flores threw me for a loop, and that was one of the first ones announced yesterday morning. I mean,
yeah.
This one was Zimmer, and right after Zimmer
was Nagy. Yeah,
this was before Nagy. If I'm not mistaken, it was Zimmer, then Flores, then Nagy.
I can't remember the sequence, but I mean, it was just like all 3 of them within the same hour. And
and I'm looking at it like, and you talk about jobs and the attractive jobs out there. Okay, in my world, in my opinion, Miami is one of the least attractive jobs you want to go to. I mean, it's okay. It's nice out there. You're on South Beach. You're in Miami. Blah 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 blah. That's all. Okay, but that's not set up as a winning organization anymore. And they're going to struggle. They're going to have challenges. You look at Nagy losing his job in Chicago. Zimmer lost his job in Minnesota. Coach Flores lost his job. You basically got another job opening, even though the guy still has his job. You got another job open in Oakland. I'm sorry, what do you call them? The Raiders, Las Vegas. That's going to be another job opening because Mark Davis.
Then again, it might not be. I'm not real convinced there. The playoffs will determine a lot about whether he stays on. He's had a good tryout.
He's done a heck of a job, Gary, and I hope you're right. But I'm gonna tell you, in my opinion. You want me to tell you your secret? You want me to tell you what the best job opening is?
Don't say Jacksonville, please.
Oh my God, that's like Miami.
Yeah, no, it's worse than Miami.
Oh, well, that's
yeah. And that's an organizational failure there. But let me in on your secret. Tell us all.
The Chicago Bears are the best job. Let me tell you why. First,
okay.
Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is not staying in Green Bay. That makes it a great job because now the division's open. He is not going back there next year. I don't care what anybody says. He's not going back. That makes it, first of all, that opens the whole division up. That's the first thing. Second thing, Chicago has a terrific defense. They have the pieces in place already. And I think what they need is just a coach to take it to the next level. I'm going to tell you, Minnesota would be a good job. They have Kirk Cousins, and people can say whatever they want about Kirk Cousins, but the guy gets the job done. Is he Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady? No. but he gets the job done. But you know me, I'm an old school guy, man. So I can't say that's a good job because they play indoor football. I can't get with that. I can't get with that. That's a controlled temperature. And you're playing in the black and blue division in the North. Everybody's supposed to be outside. Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota. They're all supposed to be outside. The only thing they need there, and he keeps saying he's not interested in it, but now would be the perfect time to go to a new job. My man, Coach Khaki, goes back to Chicago. It'd be perfect. The guys they're interviewing, Gary, they're going to talk to Brian Daboll. Okay, that's not lighting a fire on anybody's collar. Chicago is one of the, what's the word I want to use? Anchor franchises for the NFL. It's one of the originals. And there's an expectation there. And you got to have somebody like a Jim Harbaugh, who's an old school guy, who's a throwback guy, and that's what Chicago is as a city. And it would fit perfectly. He's got a quarterback. In my opinion, Gary, he should remind Jim Harbaugh of himself because he's really not a drop back quarterback. He's really not a passer. But what that kid feels is he's going to be a winner. He's going to find a way to win a game. And that's what Harbaugh was. Harbaugh was not Joe Montana. He wasn't Fran Tarkenton. He wasn't anybody like that. But he won games in Chicago and with the Indianapolis Colts. I think that's the best job. Now, I agree with you. The two worst jobs are Miami and Jacksonville. The sad thing is Tampa Bay's coordinators are going to interview for Jacksonville. The sad thing is, because of the way the NFL is, if they get a chance, they're going to take that job. That's really sad because I want to see a coach get a job and have a chance to be successful. There's no chance to be successful in Jacksonville. There's no chance to be successful in Miami. If there was a chance to be successful in Miami, then Coach Flores would still have his job today. The man started the season at 1-7, lost 7 straight, then won 7 straight. There is no other coach in the history of football who has done that. And if everything works out right, this guy is going to be looked upon and get another shot. He deserves another shot. He deserves it. And normally I don't get a little bit irritated like this, Gary, but that termination yesterday, he shouldn't have gotten terminated. But I tell you what, I'll tell you where he could go if he don't get a job there. We'll take him right back in New England, and he can be back with Belichick and the wonderful dynasty of New England. But I know he won't go back there.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you on one of those things, and that's with the Bears. The Bears, in 30 years, they've only had 7 winning seasons, John.
Okay.
That job is not it's almost like Washington, which used to be a premier franchise. The thing with the Bears is ownership. Well, that ownership has been criticized for years for just botching, whether it's general manager hires, player personnel hires, bad draft choices, all kinds of things like that. I'm not confident that the Bears will hire the right people to fill the GM spot or the coaching spot, because I think really they're bean counters. I don't think that they're football people. If they get a football person in there, they've got a chance. But until the Bears show some kind of smarts and who they hire as general manager, who I hope that person is a good football person as opposed to, say, a business person, and hires a good football coach, I don't think that that's a good job. And I think a lot of coaches who might be interested in that are going to say, look, who's going to be my boss? Does he really know the game?
Well, I hear what you're saying. And I agree with you that Chicago is a job that, okay, they won 7 times in 30 years. But let me tell you this about why I say that about them. You're absolutely correct. But it's the illusion that Chicago has on people, Gary.
You said the key word, illusion.
You're right. But you look at when Ditka was there. Ditka won how many Super Bowls, Gary?
Oh, really, one?
Okay, he won one. He won one.
I mean, one as a coach.
He won one as a coach, won one as a player with the Cowboys. He won one. But because of the way and the marketing and everything that goes in Chicago, you would think he had won 6, like Michael Jordan had won 6 in basketball. And that's why I say that's a great job, because it's the illusion, it's the belief that Chicago is what it is. I think they are a team where when they're relevant, it makes everything else better. Kind of like the Cowboys, not as much as like the Cowboys, but if they're relevant in that black and blue division, and I'm showing our age, Gary, because they don't call it the black and blue anymore, but if they're relevant, then it makes the whole division better. And I'm telling you right now, with this thing, with Green Bay, this is their last hurrah. They're going to either get it this year or they're not going to get to the Super Bowl. This is the best job, and this is the best time to get in there in Chicago, because they have the pieces there to be a winner. I really believe that.
Yeah, now I will agree with you on that. The pieces are there. That you just have to get the right coach, for that. Someone who's going to nurture Justin Fields, who's going to do something with that defense. But again, I think the hopes in Chicago among their fans is just like management, just don't screw this one up. Like you screwed up some of the other decisions. And I'm not talking about coaching. I'm not even talking about Matt Nagy necessarily, because I mean the guy was like 34-31.
After his first year. After his first year, everybody thought he was he was better than sliced bread. Remember, because they went to the playoffs this year, and he won 10 games.
But draft choices. I mean, Mitch Trubisky was turned out to be a questionable draft choice, and it's like I don't even know if he's even in the league right now. But I mean, Justin Fields, I think I do think that there's some upside with him as well. But let's move on, John, to the playoffs and some of the matchups that we have coming up. I'm more intrigued by, say, not so much the divisional games, but like some of these wild card games, like I'll say like Dallas and San Francisco, maybe like Pittsburgh and Kansas City. Those are intriguing games. And I see you smiling. I know that there's something probably coming about Dallas and or San Francisco. Go with it.
Well, our producer is a very avid fan of the Dallas Cowboys, and they are playing the San Francisco 49ers. And they have played the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs before. They've had the 49ers in Dallas in the playoffs. The 49ers have never beaten the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas in the playoffs, Gary and John Pitt. That's never happened, man. Dallas has always dominated them. Dallas has always put the licking on them and beat them. I think only one time I know of that Dallas has lost to San Francisco in the playoffs. That was a year Montana and the great catch that he threw to Dwight Clark. Hey, Pitt, I'm going to tell you something. Dallas always dominates San Francisco. That's why I am going with the 49ers. I'm telling you right now.
That was a great setup, and I knew it was coming.
I'm telling you, man, they have something that is going to give Dallas problems, and that is the ground and pound. Kyle Shanahan is nothing more than his father, Mike Shanahan. He can go and get a 10th round draft pick to play a running back, and he will look like a Hall of Fame player going to Canton, Ohio as a running back. They are going to run and run and run and run. Or did I say run and run? Dallas. They are just going to continue to run. And by the way, San Francisco's defense is tough. They are unbelievable. Bosa, was it Joey Bosa? Is that Joey Bosa? It's one of the Bosa brothers. They are tough. They're tough. And I don't know if they're going to go with Garoppolo or they're going to go with Trey Lance. But the thing is, Shanahan controls the game with the run. And the run eats up the clock, Gary. It eats up the clock. And I'm going to be honest with you. And John, I love you to death, man. This is probably the worst matchup that Dallas could have gotten for the playoffs. This is the absolute worst matchup, in my opinion. Can they beat San Francisco? Yes. But do I think they will? No. I think San Francisco gets them because it's And that's really, to me, that's really going to be sad for me in a way, because I really want Dallas to do it this year and go a little ways in the playoffs, but they just this is just not a good matchup for them.
Yeah, okay. It is probably the worst matchup they could probably draw, especially when you look at how San Francisco came back against LA. And you can say whatever about LA's defense. I mean, it was pretty hard down the stretch because they blew basically a 2-touchdown lead.
Yeah.
And lost that game. And I mean, and they beat them with the run, they beat them with the pass. That was impressive. In fact, every time I look at the end of that game, I keep thinking, where was the San Francisco team all year? That's the thing I'm just trying to figure, because, we had them dead and buried.
Well,
long ago.
They finally got to going with the run for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Another thing that was amazing in that 17-point comeback they had against the Rams, man, I thought it was a home game for San Francisco. They totally took over SoFi Stadium. It was Rams' home game, and I just saw all these red jerseys there. But yeah. I just think that San Francisco is going to get them. I really do. I think San Francisco is going to get them. I think Dallas it's going to be a good game. It's not going to be a blowout, but I think in the end, it's going to be too much running, too much ground and pound from San Francisco.
Yeah. The intriguing matchup to me is Kansas City, Pittsburgh. I mean, really, Kansas City should win this game, but that's just a bad matchup for them, I think, right now, because Pittsburgh basically they got a lifeline they probably didn't expect, courtesy of
Brandon Staley.
Yeah, well, yeah, Staley. Well, Jacksonville probably gave them the biggest gift of all by beating the brakes off Indianapolis. And then in going out there and beating Baltimore, that might be a topic for another show. But Pittsburgh, I mean, they're in the playoffs and they expected to be going home. I thoroughly believe they did not expect to be playing second weekend in January or third week in January, as it turns out. And I think that's a dangerous matchup for Kansas City, because while they wouldn't be complacent, I think while so many things favor them, that there are a lot of things that Pittsburgh with another game. And here's the interesting stat. You know that Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh?
15 seasons. 15 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, for all our talk about Coach Hoodie and everything in New England, that's just impressive. And it's more impressive here these last couple of years, because that team, you see that slow decline. They're aging. Again, when Ben Roethlisberger took that victory lap around the field, their last home game, I really thought that was probably going to be his swan song. I did not see them in the playoffs, but then, here they are. They're not playing at home anytime soon, but they go to Kansas City. That's a dangerous matchup for Kansas City, because I could see Big Ben pulling out another miracle comeback on the road just because it's Big Ben.
Gary, I'm gonna tell you something, man. You make some very great points on that, man. That's going to be interesting. But this is the end of the line for Ben Roethlisberger. That party comes to a stop in Kansas City. I cannot see Kansas.
It should.
I can't. I mean, they played Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and Kansas City dominated them. I'm not saying they're going to dominate them again, but this team is another example of the great coach that Tomlin is, because this is not a strong Pittsburgh team. They don't have a great running game. They got Najee Harris, and he's doing okay now, but They're not strong running. They got T.J. Watt, who gets a lot of sacks, but this isn't your mom and dad's Pittsburgh Steelers team. And I think this party comes to an end on when they play Saturday, Sunday in Kansas City.
I think it's Saturday. Yeah. All I'm saying is that Kansas City can't look past Pittsburgh by any stretch. That's the biggest mistake that they could make. As good as Kansas City is playing right now, they just don't underestimate. Do not sleep on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not because I think the Steelers are any great team right now, but it's just a bad matchup. It's a dangerous matchup because what do they say? A desperate team is a dangerous team, and Pittsburgh has played with desperation these last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, you're right. They are dangerous, but I still stick with my statement. As much as I like it ends this week in Kansas City.
Well, let's look at some matchups, John. I mean, we've talked about two of them, but name some of the other ones that you might like.
I got
Cincinnati.
One. Thank you. I got one for you. Cincinnati and the Raiders. Cincinnati is going home. Raiders will beat Cincinnati.
I can see that happening.
I think
I can see that happening, and really, that's a game I would like to go to. Just because it's just right up the road. But and it's really, I'm not saying anything bad about Cincinnati. It's just how the Raiders are playing more so than how Cincinnati's playing. Again, we go back to the whole thing about a dangerous team right now, and the Raiders are playing well. They're probably going to give that interim coach they've made a case for the interim coach to get that job permanently. If they win that playoff game, which they've got a chance to do, I think he is the coach. But again, winning in an environment, especially you're talking about going into a cold environment
with snow,
with snow,
and outdoors. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You really think the Raiders can do that?
I think they're playing with house money, Gary. And I think right now, I just think they could pull it off. I really do. I know they've been playing indoors in this controlled environment and everything, but I really think that they can make some things happen. I think they can do it.
All right. Bills, Jets. Oh, I'm sorry, not Bills, Jets. I'm trying to remember who the Bills are playing now. Oh,
New England Patriots. Gary, I'm not going to go against. I'm not going to go against the Bill Belichick and the Patriots. I'm not going to do that. But this is a lot to ask. I am going to say this. I'm going to love this game because you know why? Again, it's outdoors and it's going to be snowing. That's how football is supposed to be played. Not inside these domes, not inside of control, like that team on your head, the Green Bay Packers. They play outdoors. When they are projecting right now, when they have their first home game, it's going to be 8 degrees. That's football, man. Now, I'm not going to sit in that mess. I can't. I'm a chump. I can't sit in that stuff. But that's going to be a great game for the Patriots. They need bad weather. They need it because I don't think, we already saw it. When they played in New England a couple weeks ago, and it was cold and it was a little bit wet, but it wasn't like it was in Buffalo before. Buffalo had their way with the Patriots. I think the Patriots need the weather. I think it needs to be a ground game. I think they need to eat the clock up. And the less Josh Allen is able to get out and affect the game, the better, because Josh Allen is a one-man wrecking crew. I'm going to go with the Patriots, Gary, because that's my team. Not going to go against them, but it's a lot to ask for.
Well, here's another matchup. Now, this one I think is going to be more clear-cut. Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia on Sunday.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think so too. Philadelphia has played with house money, and I think their run comes to an end in Tampa. So we've talked about Dallas, San Francisco. I'm trying to think of Kansas City and Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah, the last one. Monday night, Arizona, LA Rams. That one's a toss-up to me. I'm going to give it to the Rams only because they're playing at home. And Arizona has a lot. They have a lot of issues. They're a little banged up. They also have some confidence issues. And playing on and going into a wild card game, going on the road for that game when you've got so many issues, especially against a Rams team that knows they should have won that game Sunday. It's going to be a tough haul for the Cardinals there, in my opinion.
Well, you're right. I just because you went with the Rams, just for talking's sake, I'm gonna go with Arizona because they're 8-1 on the road this year. So I'm gonna go with Arizona. I really want McVay to win with the Rams, but it's just so we're on different sides of the street. I'll go ahead and I'll take Arizona.
Okay. All right. Well, John, I think that about wraps it up. We have, well, again, once again, another great week in sports. We had a great game last night. We're going to have probably another great game this coming Monday in the NFL, the first Monday night playoff game, which is going to be interesting. More football than we can ever really think about digesting it at any time, but that's why we love sports. So a week from now, we're going to be talking about the playoff games and how they shook out, and as well as looking at the Rams and Cardinals again. John, always good talking with you. I hope that you get everything that you want out of sports this week. Maybe at some point we'll talk about Klay Thompson's return and get to some NBA and maybe some college basketball, since league games start up in earnest, this week.
Sure.
So until next time.
Can we also talk about in the future why Brandon Staley still has a job in San Diego? Can we talk about that? I mean, next time, or maybe, I'm just inquiring minds want to know, Gary. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, that one, that's a head scratcher for me. And I'm a San Diego fan. That was a head scratcher to me because he made two bad decisions that cost them a game. But that last one was one that, again, everybody in America was just like, the Raiders are playing for a tie. They're going to send both of them to the playoffs. All they had to do was just not, they had no timeouts and couldn't stop the clock and weren't in position necessarily for a great field goal, and they just got a second chance that they didn't expect. And why not take advantage of it if you're the Raiders?
Hey, well, like I said, inquiring minds want to know. Maybe in the future we can talk about that, and maybe you can help me understand what his rationale was, because I tell you, I don't get it. But
he said it was about getting the right personnel on the field, but. Again, I'm still looking at what was it, 4th and 1 inside your 20, and you decide to go for it, and then you didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, Gary, I'm going to have another great week in sports. I hope everybody out there enjoys sports this week. I mean, it's NFL playoff time. We just got finished with a great college football championship. And John Pitt, hey, man, you watched that Cowboy game very closely, man. And, thanks for everything you do. But, hey, watch the Cowboys closely. Maybe I'll be wrong, man. If I'm wrong, I want you to call me and tell me I'm wrong. But, hey, we'll see. Ground and pound, man. Ground and pound. Gary, everybody, take care. Have a great week. Have fun and be careful out there. We'll see you again real soon.
All right. Till next time, America.